What's going on, YouTube? Welcome to the Marathon Preparation Season 1, Episode 1. Throughout this series, I'm going to be training for the Fort Lauderdale Marathon, which is on Valentine's Day, 2021. Now, the goal for this marathon is to complete it in under 4 hours. Now, I have done a few marathons, for those of you that have been following me, and a few ultra marathons. But on this particular marathon, the goal that I'm setting is going to be faster than any marathon I've ever completed. So, without further ado, let's jump right into episode 1. Alright guys, so in my previous races, the biggest hurdle that I've always had to overcome was getting IT band syndrome. Now, for those of you that aren't consistent runners, IT band syndrome, or better known as runner's knee, is something that is pretty common for especially new runners. I myself have been running for a few years now, but the thing is, I haven't been prepping for these marathons or these races like I should have, aka stretching, nutrition, things of that nature. I have definitely gotten exposed throughout all these races. At least I completed the races that I've done, but I have yet to hit the goals that I necessarily want to hit. You know what I'm saying? So the point of this season is to hit that goal, which is a sub-4 hour marathon. If you want to see races where I suffered from IT band syndrome, but I kept it pushing, go ahead and hit this link where it'll take you to one of them, which was the 100-mile race that I did in March of 2020. So I caught IT band syndrome probably around the 20 to 22 mile marker of this 100-mile race that I was trying to complete. And needless to say, I always get IT band syndrome right around the same time, anywhere between 15 to 20 miles. I usually only get IT band syndrome when I'm going at a fairly decent pace, anything faster than about like an 8:30 mile. And basically, from my perspective, from my experience, I feel as though it is due to a lack of stretching. I mean, I've always stretched, but I realized I need to take stretching to a whole nother level. All right, guys, so let's jump right into the training schedule. So I actually got this training schedule from Hal Higdon, who's a veteran in the run game. I'm gonna leave his original 12-week training schedule to qualify for the Boston Marathon in the link in my description. I'm also gonna leave my training schedule that I edited, and I cut it down from 12 weeks to about 7 weeks. And this shortened training schedule is due to the fact that I'm approximately 7 weeks out from my marathon, so I don't necessarily have 12 weeks to prepare. So I tweaked it and altered it to my specific liking. And I think that most of you that are consistent runners and are looking to qualify for marathons would find it very beneficial to go ahead and check that out. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and jump right into this training schedule. So the training is scheduled for 3 5-mile runs throughout the week at relatively a zone 2 heart rate. Now for me, a zone 2 heart rate, because I'm 26 years old, is anywhere between 113 to about 132 BPMs. I have also incorporated 800 meter sprints once a week. The sets vary depending on which week, how far you are along in the program. But it's always going to be 800 meters and anywhere between a zone 4 to zone 5 heart rate. So you really want to be sprinting on these sprints. I mean, that's why we call it sprints, right? On Fridays, we're going to rest. And Saturdays and Sundays is the big boy days. You already know what time it is. So if you go ahead and look, that very first Saturday, jumping right into a half marathon. And for those of you that aren't experienced, like I said, I wouldn't necessarily recommend this program. This program is a shortened version of Boston Marathon qualifying training schedule. So obviously, like this training program isn't for beginners, for the novice runner. But on the first Saturday, go ahead and jump right into a half marathon. Then the day after that, a 2-hour run. And if you look at the ratio right after the 2 hours, it's 3 to 1. So basically what that means is for every mile of those 2 hours of running, the first 3/4 of a mile are going to be run at a zone 2 to zone 3 heart rate. That last quarter mile is going to be ran at a zone 4 to zone 5. So that's why I put that 3 to 1 ratio in there. And it it's something different that I want to try. So that's why I'm implementing it there. And after that, every Sunday after that isn't necessarily going to be timed. That's still going to be timed run for 2 hours. Every Sunday after that is going to go from 16 to 20 miles in 2-mile increments. So week 2 Sunday is going to be 16 miles. Week 3 Sunday is going to be 18 miles. Week 4 Sunday is going to be 20 miles. Or should I say week 5 is going to be 20 miles. And other than that, that's basically the only real difference throughout the weeks. Like I said, throughout the whole training program, 3 days out of the 6 that we're training, because Friday's rest day, is going to be a consistent 5-mile run at a zone 2, high zone 2 heart rate. This is where the huge quote unquote gains are going to happen for the runner that does this training program. Running at zone 2 heart rate, especially for 5 miles consistently for this amount of time, it should naturally boost up your VO2 max, essentially bringing down your resting heart rate, which at the end of the day is what we want. We want to be able to run those 10, 13, 15-mile runs without it necessarily being so taxing on the body. If we can get to that point, that is where our marathon pace or our marathon final time will start decreasing and getting more towards, for instance, Boston qualifying time. That's 3 hours sometimes, depending on your age, whatever the case may be. But other than that, there's no real change to the training program. It's pretty consistent. Like I said, on Sundays, we're just upping it 2 miles every week, basically. And that's about it for the running portion of this training. Now, don't get it twisted. Just because this is marathon prep doesn't mean we're just focusing on running. From my experiences, it is essential to not only focus on the running part of the training, but also strength training. Having said that, I'm wrapping up a 6-week program that I started to build strength, known as the Russian squat program. Now, for those of you that don't necessarily lift, you might have not heard of the Russian squat program, but for those of you that are lifters, you probably have heard of the Russian squat program. I actually made a whole series on the Russian squat program. If you want to check that out, go ahead and hit this link, and it'll show you the whole 6-week program and exactly what it's about and the gains that I've made while running at the same time. But needless to say, strength training while running and while training for a marathon is essential. One thing that I've noticed and that's helped me out a lot is on those long runs when your posture is just deteriorating, that posterior chain needs to be intact, your core needs to be good, and you need to be able to handle the beating. Your legs need to be able to handle all that constant impact on the ground. And it's just very essential when it comes to strength training. Now, I know there's this whole misconception throughout the running world that runners need to be skinny and light and whatnot. Don't get me wrong, if you want super maximum efficiency, that is probably the best way to go. However, I like to test my limits, and that isn't necessarily one of my goals, to go down in weight and become the quickest that I can possibly get at a deficit weight-wise. That isn't necessarily my goal. My goal is to maintain a specific weight, increase in strength, yet cut down on my marathon time. That is the whole purpose of this program. Now, like I said, this program, I'm doing it in conjunction with another program. You don't necessarily have to do this, but I definitely would recommend one particular exercise, without a doubt. You guys are gonna hate me for this, the squat. The squat, if you just squat, let's just say 3 times a week, which is what I'm doing in the Russian squat program, amongst other exercises. Just squatting 3 times a week, not necessarily squatting for absolute maximum strength, but hitting at least, 5, 8 reps, a few sets, maybe 2, 3 times a week. I know that sounds a lot, I know. But I'm telling you guys, if you build up those quads, those hamstrings, that core, that posterior chain, I'm telling you, it will benefit you on these runs. I don't know, I don't really hear this type of advice from people that I follow in the running world, but from my experience, that has definitely helped out tremendously. Now, let's touch up on a topic that I myself honestly hate, stretching. So stretching obviously is very important when running a marathon. If you are trying to build strength while running a marathon, you have to double down on stretching, which is the position that I'm particularly in right now. So, like I said earlier, the weakest part of my training is the stretching. It's probably the most consistent. However, I've been working on it these last couple of weeks, implementing anywhere between 30 to 60 minutes of stretching every day. And to be honest with you, it's just like anything else in life. It comes down to consistency. How consistent are you? I've noticed when I do certain stretches that my hips open up, especially with the squatting and the miles that I'm putting on my body. My hips tend to get really, really tight. And so, for instance, when I'm doing the runner's lunge, get like really deep in that runner's lunge and sit there for 10 minutes at a time. See, that's what I'm talking about. Getting a massage going and going into that psoas muscle and just drilling it while you're in that runner's lunge position. See, this is what I'm talking about. This type of dedication and consistency is essential. And the more you do it, the better off you're gonna be come race day. Like I said earlier, my IT band syndrome always kicks in anywhere between mile 15 and mile 20. I'm telling you guys, this is lack of stretching above anything. So hopefully, come February 14th, Valentine's Day 2021, my body's gonna be ready to take on that pain. All right, so here on this channel, we like to keep it real, keep it 100, tell the truth about everything. So it's only right that I also mention the fact that I incorporate catabolic and anaerobic exercises within my training. Now, prepping for this marathon, if you yourself are also doing the same, you don't have to do this. I'm just trying to go that extra mile. So the reason that I incorporate anaerobic and catabolic exercises in my training regimen is because I need something that's going to push me when times get tough during these races. So if you look at the runs that are split up throughout the spreadsheet, 5 miles here, another 5 miles here, a half marathon here. Yeah, the distances change, but the heart rate zones are pretty much the same, and it's not that challenging. Because like I said earlier, the whole point of those runs is to essentially increase VO2 max and decrease resting heart rate. Now, if you want that challenge, that mental fortitude challenge, that dig deep, that, I don't know if I have what it takes to finish this out, this is what you would want to do. Catabolic and anaerobic exercises. Matter of fact, go ahead and hit this link. I made a whole video on it. There's 10 stations, and throughout all these 10 stations, you're maintaining a zone 4, predominantly a zone 5 heart rate. So, like I said, the reason that I'm implementing this is because at mile 20, mile 21, when it gets real painful and you realize you've come a long way, but at the same time, you got a long way to go, it gets real. And you need to train that. That uncomfortability, you need to train that. You can't just face that for the first time come race day. It's happened to me numerous times. Thankfully, that's one part of my training that I don't necessarily shy away from. I like the uncomfortability. Now, the stretching and things of that nature, I don't know. I guess that's just where I've lacked most throughout all my training regimens. But as far as mental fortitude, I've always been pretty good with it. All right, guys, so that pretty much wraps up season 1, episode 1 of Marathon Training. If you like this content, go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Hit that push notification bell, maybe throw in a little like, and I love to hear all y'all's opinions. Let me get those comments, tell me what you think. Do you think I'm overloading myself? Do you think, crazy as it sounds, I'm not doing enough? I want to hear everything. I want to hear your insights. So go ahead and hit me with those comments, and I'll be all ears. With that being said, Dro out.